Here we're taking a look at lesson 2.1. It's negative numbers and the number line, and really focusing in on negative numbers and what they mean to us. Backed by popular demand, students have requested that I take a look at this worksheet with them. So I know this is coming home tonight and it's due tomorrow for all hours. That really means that it's due tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 15th of November for all hours. So just kind of a friendly reminder, we're in a 4-course schedule tomorrow. Notice in this first section I said you need to highlight key words. When we're talking about finding a positive or negative number to represent the situation, I really want to think about what key words are speaking to me. So for number 1, the key word is really loss. A loss of $180. Well, I like to kind of show myself here, I'm thinking of a negative number. So I'm going to quickly write a negative 180. If you want to give it more context, you could definitely write a negative $180, but I'm okay with this idea of a negative number. Number 2, it says a gain of 10 yards. If we're talking football, I bet my football players like this one, you'd love to gain 10 yards. In fact, that would be a positive thing. So I'm going to decode this a little bit and just show you that gain represents positive. So I could show you either a 10 or maybe a positive 10. This same idea continues for this top section, but I know for a fact that students in a minute kind of get hung up with this idea of withdrawal. If you withdraw money from your account, well, you have to think, hey, that money's in my pocket, how exciting. But what just happened to your bank account? Oh, you just lost money from your account. That's a negative. So make sure that you're paying attention to withdrawals being negatives. The opposite of a withdrawal is a deposit. So when you look at number 5 today, keep in mind that if I get to deposit money into my lunch account, yes, I can buy some lunch today. Or if I deposit my check for the week, yes, I got paid. The account is building, it's going up. So a deposit is positive. Let's fast forward to another section here that students requested from me. So I'm going to kind of turn the page here on you. And I know students are a little bit concerned about these vertical number lines and how that should look. But I'll be honest, I've seen some scary horizontal number lines today too. So let's do a quick review of horizontal number lines. Horizontal number lines, they really move from maybe east to west or left to right. And if you notice in this number set, I really want to find the smallest number so I know what to start with. And the smallest would really be a negative 5. It's the lowest. I might even put a little L next to it. It's the lowest. What number is the greatest? Well, my positives are greater, and the biggest positive I see is 5. So I want my number line to go from negative 5 to positive 5. Those are small enough numbers that I can probably count by ones. Negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, and 0. And moving to the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Please remember that all good number lines need points. And this doesn't use word form. It doesn't tell me from, which is friendly, or between, which is a bully. It instead gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers to plot, so I need to have 6 points. The first one I see here is negative 4, so let's put a point on negative 4. The next one I see is 0. Let's put a point on 0. The third point needs to go to 3. The fourth point is negative 1, so that's behind 0. Move 1 back. Next I need positive 5, which is way over here, the most positive number on this number line, and negative 5, which is the lowest or the least, farthest to the left. Your number line is done. You need another horizontal number line for number 17, and I really like the idea of showing these extra numbers in between, or these extra intervals, because then you're more likely to be accurate. Your number line will look more accurate. This bottom section, students were kind of concerned about these vertical number lines, so they asked me to video this today. So we're kind of flying crew because I told you I don't have a lot of time to do this one. So here goes. Vertical, we remember that that moves from north to south, or maybe up and down. It moves vertically. And I want my numbers to go from negative 12 to positive 1. Well, which way are my negatives? Hopefully you remember that negatives are near the bottom. So I'm actually going to show myself a negative down here. And positives are moving towards the top. Well, I probably, if I write pretty small, could count by my negatives here, and I could get from negative 12 to positive 1. Let's give it a try. Negative 12 way down here, and getting closer to 0, negative 11, negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, and on the other side of 0 I still need to show positive 1. Notice my 0 is not smack dab in the middle of my number line because I had a lot of negatives to show for the the problem in particular. And notice it also says from. From is friendly. What I say is friendly numbers include the endpoints. It includes all of the numbers. I start from -12 and go all the way to +1. You need a point on every single integer. Remember, integers are those positive and negative numbers on the number line. Well, I see we're losing our focus, but I think we're back. Number 19, be careful. This one says something different. It says odd numbers, which I'll deal with in a minute, meaning I need to put points on the odds. But then it says between, and I remember between is a bully. He leaves out the endpoints. And next I need a vertical number line that goes from -10 to +3. So let's see if we can focus this one more time. -10 to +3. We're moving vertically, and -10 is the smallest. It's going to be down here at the bottom with my negatives. +3 has to be up here with my positives. And I'm going to try to squeeze these in to make them fit. -9, -8, -7. These don't look as negative as I get closer to 0, do they? I'm moving up the number line, and they're looking less and less negative. 0, 1, 2, and +3. Now, where should I put my points? I have all of these intervals. They look great. But remember it said odd points. Points on the odd numbers between. Well, please don't use 10 or 3, even if they are odd, which I see 3 is odd. I can't put a point on it because it's one of those endpoints that's being left out by between, the bully. So let's get the other odd numbers. -9 is odd. -7 is odd. -5 is odd. -3 is odd. I'm really looking for any number that does not divide nicely by 2. And, oh, I almost put a point on 3. Remember, leave out the endpoints. No endpoints. And again, that's because we had that bully between. Students asked me to move on to this next section. They're a little bit concerned about comparing these numbers, these negatives or these positives, and how that would look might be using this number line. Again, they tell you to draw a number line for numbers 20 through 25. Start at -7 and get up to +4. So if I'm working horizontally, negatives are to the left and positives are to the right. Let's try this. -7, -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, +1, +2, +3, +4. And I could keep going, but it tells me that I can stop at 4. If you take a look, I really want to keep in mind that this 0 kind of is a fold line. It's like a line of symmetry. If I were to fold this number line smack dab down the middle of 0, my -1 and my +1 should line up. My -2 and my +2 would line up. My -3 and my +3 would line up. These opposites really are the same distance away from 0, aren't they? It kind of helps me to make sure that my numbers are in the right order. Well, number 20, I have a -7 and a -5. If you look at your notes today, -7 is farther to the left. And we know left is less on the number line. So if I have two negatives, I could also say -5 is closer to the positives or closer to 0. -7 must be less than -5. What happens if I have a positive and a negative, like in number 23? Well, a positive on +3. I'll use a different symbol here. We'll use stars. And a negative on -6. Well, notice which one's farther to the left. -6 is on the left. It must be less. Left is less on a horizontal number line. So who would win? If we were playing our integer card game like we did today, you know a positive beats a negative. $3 is better than owing $6 any day. I see another tricky one over here. If you take a look, I notice that 22 has a negative and 0. If I were to put some marks on those on my number line, I could say, okay, -4 is over here. I'll give them smiley faces. -4 and 0 right here. Let's compare. -4 and 0. Would it be better to owe $4 or to have $0? The answer probably is to have nothing. I don't want to owe anyone money. So 0 is a larger number. It's farther to the right. It's worth more. More to the right. Or someone in my class says, right is bright. So kind of like a positive thing. If you look to the right, it looks bright or positive. So another way to mark this might be the -4 is left on the number line, which means it's worth less. Well, -4 must be less than 0. I'd rather have $0 any day than owe someone 4. This same idea would continue for each of these numbers. Remember, a positive will always beat a negative, or is always greater than a negative. I see another one like that with number 25. Remember, when I have two negatives, like here, -7 and -5, the number closer to 0 wins. Just because of the challenge I see on this next one, I have a negative and it's a decimal or 0. Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm not worried that that's a decimal one bit, because I know something. Negatives are less than 0, and 0 is neutral. He kind of separates my negatives from my positives. Which would be better? Would it be better to owe a little more than 1? Or would it be better to have 0 of something? I hope you know that the negatives are farther left. Left is less. And that would be a bad situation. I'd rather have 0. We would say -1 and 8/10 is less than 0. I have a couple more to show you here because students requested them today. So we're going to try to zoom. So Travis, you're getting your video before 8 o'clock. If you take a look, it says, I want to order these numbers from least to greatest. Well, we did this today. We played a game where we draw 5 cards in class and we try to order them quickly. That's exactly what we're doing, but notice we're given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers in our set. Well, if I'm thinking of the numbers that are the least, I really want to move from, oops, I almost wrote that wrong, negatives first to positives second. Negatives are smaller than positives, aren't they? So take a look here. I have a -25, a -110, or a -200. Who is really far down the number line? He owes an awful lot. Well, owing $200 would be a terrible thing. So -200 comes first. If I move up the number line a little bit, I'm trying to get closer to 0, but I still owe quite a bit if I have another negative number here. Which one would come next? Well, I have -25, which seems like not a good thing to owe $25, or -110. Ooh, that seems even worse. You're owing $110. Well, the worst situation means the smaller number. The more negative it looks, the smaller it is, or the smaller its value. So -110 comes next. Think about this -25. We're moving up the number line. We're trying to get ourselves to 0. We're trying to have to owe no money at this situation, in this problem. So in this situation, who would come next? All my negatives are gone. 0. 0 is one of the numbers in the set. We'll include it. There's that nice neutral boundary that separates my negatives from my positives. Last up, we need to include our positive numbers. But remember, I'm thinking about the opposite situation from my negatives. I'd rather have more, right? So which one would be smaller? $23 or $48? Well, hopefully you know 23 would come before 48 on our number line, moving towards the right or the positives. This is a final answer. So what has changed? In number 34, it says to go from greatest to least. If I'm given any positive numbers, I know I'm going to have to give them first. Positives first. And I'm going to move to my negatives last. So I'm kind of doing this one in reverse. It's kind of like taking the number line and reading it backwards. It's kind of like your anime books, maybe. So what positives do I have to work with here? What's the biggest number I could possibly see? 10, 90, or 55? I'd rather have $90. 90 is the greatest number. Well then, if I could choose between 10 or 55, I'd definitely choose 55. And last but not least, I guess it wouldn't be bad to have $10. It's more than I have today. If you take a look at these negatives, I have to consider this. I want to go from the greatest to the least. So I'm kind of like crossing over 0 here. I'm reading that number line backwards, aren't I? So 0 would happen in here somewhere, and then I'd start counting backwards, -1, -2, -3. Well, which negative would we run into first? As I move backwards on the number line, -45 would be closest to 0. And if I kept on going, I'd run into -80 next. And don't forget that at the very back of that number line, if I kept on going, would be a -120. This is a final answer. We used all 6 numbers in the set, and we went from positives first to negatives last, or greatest to least. The last thing my students were super concerned about, and they wanted a video about tonight, was Jose and Ling. So Jose and Ling are given 50 points at the beginning of a board game. During the game, Jose lost 120 points and Ling lost 80 points. Who has fewer points? Write an inequality statement to compare their results at the end of the game. Well, first of all, I noticed something. Part A, Part B. I need to answer who has fewer points, and I also need to write an inequality. So I know there are two pieces. And before I can even go there, I need to do some math. So Jose and Ling are given 50 points. I think I would do something like this. I'm going to try a number line strategy with you. And I'm going to draw Jose here. This will be Jose's number line. Here he is. He's way out here past 0. He's back here at 50. And no, I didn't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 50 because that would have taken a really long time. So here he is at his 50 points. In fact, I'll put a point there. During the game, what happened to poor Jose? He lost 120 points. Well, I know that means he's moving backwards. He's moving backwards 120. Let's think for a minute. What if he moved backwards just 50? What if I took away just 50 from him? Where would he land? Oh, that's right. He'd be at 0. But wouldn't we have to take away more? Let's see. I already took away 50. Wouldn't there be more than that to take away? Aren't I heading to the negatives? And the answer is yes. I really want to take away 120 total. So how could I do that? Maybe I could split 120 into a number bond. Is 120 the same as, say, 50 plus 50 plus, I want to stretch this out a little bit because I know 50 and 50 is 100, plus 20 more. So if I already took away 50 to jump back to 0, that part's taken care of. But what about this 50 plus 20 business? How much would that be? Wouldn't I have to move backwards 70 more? Way back here on the number line, poor Jose, you have a negative 70 points. Another way I saw students solve this today is they took Jose's 120 loss and they subtracted it from the 50 he originally had just to see the difference. So 0 take away 0, and here, little regroup involved, 12 take away 5. Oh yeah, I got the same great answer. But remember, we have to make it negative because he went past 0. He lost more than he had. All right, here's Jose's number line. I would really try the same strategy here with Ling. So Ling has this number line. We'll start with 0 and show Ling started with 50 points also. But poor Ling, did you hear what happened? He lost 80 points. So he lost more than 50. Too bad. If he lost 50, at least he'd have 0 to end the game. But he lost more. He went all the way back here. Negative 80 points. Because it's a loss, it's negative. Forget to show that up here. That's a good idea. A loss, which is negative. So let's try this number bond idea again. I have 80 points I want to take away, and I already took away 50. 50 plus something is 80. Oh, 50 plus 30. I need to take away 30 more. Sorry, Ling. You're going to move backwards 30 more. Well, behind 0, if I started counting backwards 30, eventually I'd get to negative 30. 30 spaces back there. So I took care of the 50, and I just moved myself backwards 30. Negative 30 seems to work. I also saw students try this with some subtraction. So if you started with 50 points, but you know you're taking away more than you were given, I have to find a subtraction or the difference. What's 80 take away 50? 0 take away 0 is 0, and 8 take away 5 here in the tens place is 3. 30. Looks like I'm left with 30. But remember, I went past 0. I need to make it negative. Well, this is all the math work I really need to do to solve the problem or show you part A and part B. Unfortunately, I kind of ran out of room here, so this is a bad situation, and I'm kind of showing you Dr. Seuss because I don't have other paper with me right this second. So I'm going to move up here, and I'm going to try to show you who has fewer points. Well, let's look. Jose has negative 70, and Ling, oops, forgot to label Ling, trying to move too fast, has negative 30. Who has fewer or a lower number? Definitely Jose. Jose has fewer points. Let's talk about part B. It says, write an inequality to compare their results. Well, what were their results? Look at Jose's number line. Where did he land? At negative 70. How about Ling? What was his final score? Negative 30. And if I want to show an inequality symbol in here, I need to say, is negative 70 greater than or less than negative 30? And the answer really is, negative 70 is farther left. It's less than. There, I've taken care of both parts A and B. Wish I had more paper planned for you before I started this video. and I wish I had a little more time to do a little more discussion, but lesson 2.1, talking about these negative numbers on a number line. You have some good examples, give it your best, and come back with some good questions for class tomorrow.